The message from Tommy came while I was pruning my roses, my one solace since retiring from teaching last spring. Mom, please come over. I need you to see something. My son rarely asked me to visit his house anymore. After his marriage to Victoria 6 years ago, our once weekly dinners had dwindled to occasional holiday gatherings. Even those felt strained, with Victoria orchestrating every minute to minimize my time with the children. I drove the familiar route to their suburban home, my mind drifting to happier times when Tommy would bring the kids, Lily, now 8, and Max, 6, for impromptu weekend visits. Back then, their laughter filled my house as we baked cookies and read stories. Now, Victoria always had an excuse why they couldn't come: homework, playdates, dance classes. Tommy met me in the driveway, his face tense. At 35, he looked older than his years, worry lines creasing his forehead. Victoria took the kids to her mother's, he said quietly. I found something you need to see. He led me through the house to the basement door. I hadn't been down there in years. Victoria had made it clear the basement was her domain for storage and laundry. As we descended the stairs, Tommy's shoulders were rigid with tension. I was looking for our camping gear, he explained, leading me to a door I'd never noticed before. And I found this. The storage room was dimly lit, but what I saw made my heart stop. Shelves lined the walls, and on them, still in their original wrapping, were gifts. Not just any gifts. Every present I'd given my grandchildren over the past 6 years. The handmade quilts I'd spent months stitching for each child. The illustrated books I'd carefully chosen. The science kits for Lily, who loved experiments. The art supplies for Max, who inherited my passion for painting. They're all here, Tommy said softly. Everything you've ever given them. The kids never even knew. My hands trembled as I reached for a package still in its Christmas wrapping from 3 years ago. Inside was the chemistry set I bought when Lily first showed interest in science. I remembered Victoria's cold smile when I handed it over. We'll save it for when she's older, she'd said. Another box held the train set I'd gotten Max for his 4th birthday, the one Victoria claimed he'd accidentally broken. It was untouched, still sealed in its box. Why? I whispered it, though I already knew. Victoria had been methodically erasing me from their lives, one refused gift at a time. Each present represented a connection she wanted to sever, a memory she didn't want the children to have of their grandmother. I had no idea, Tommy said, his voice cracking. She told me you'd stopped sending gifts years ago, that you'd lost interest in the kids. The pain in his voice mirrored my own. For years, I'd watched my grandchildren grow distant, believing Victoria's excuses. The toys they were too old for now. The books that didn't suit their reading level. The art supplies that were too messy for the house. I picked up a small package from last Christmas. A locket for Lily with a picture of us baking together when she was 3. One of our last happy memories before Victoria decided I was spending too much time with her daughter. There's more, Tommy said grimly, pulling out his phone. I found these when I was looking through our old messages. He showed me screenshots of texts, conversations between him and Victoria about my visits, my gifts, my attempts to be part of their lives. Victoria's responses were calculated, painting me as intrusive, overbearing, trying to undermine her parenting. She deleted these from my phone, Tommy explained, but they backed up to the cloud. Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have seen what was happening. I sank onto a nearby box, overwhelmed by the evidence of years of manipulation. The children, I managed to say. Do they think I abandoned them? Tommy ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so like his father's it made my heart ache. Victoria, she's been telling them you're too busy for visits, that you have your own life now. Lily asked about you last week, why you never come to her dance recitals anymore. I realized I couldn't remember the last time I actually told you about one. The truth hit hard. While I'd been thinking my grandchildren were too busy for me, they'd been told I was too busy for them. All those missed birthdays, school plays, and milestones, orchestrated by a woman who saw me as a threat rather than family. What do we do? I asked, looking around at the physical proof of years of deception. Tommy's jaw set in a determined line. First, we document everything. Then, we tell the truth. The kids deserve to know their grandmother never stopped loving them, never stopped trying to be part of their lives. I stood up, my teacher's instinct for fairness kicking in. We need to be careful, I said. The children love their mother. We can't turn this into a war. No, Tommy agreed. But we can't let it continue either. I've already called a family counselor. We have an appointment tomorrow. As we carefully photographed each hidden gift, I felt a mix of sadness and hope. The past 6 years couldn't be undone, but maybe, just maybe, we could build something new from the truth. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway made us both freeze. Victoria was back early. Tommy quickly closed the storage room door, but not before I grabbed the locket I'd bought for Lily. It was time for some truths to come to light. Ready? Tommy asked, looking both terrified and determined. I squeezed his hand, hearing Victoria's footsteps above us. Ready, I replied, knowing that what happened next would change everything. The basement door opened and Victoria's voice floated down. Tommy? Why is your mother's car in the driveway? Victoria's heels clicked on the basement stairs, each step echoing like a countdown. I gripped the locket in my hand, drawing strength from its familiar shape. Through the dim light, I saw her figure appear, her perfectly styled hair and designer outfit a stark contrast to the dusty storage room surroundings. She froze when she saw us, her practiced smile faltering for just a moment before snapping back into place. Martha, she said, her voice artificially sweet. What a surprise. Tommy didn't mention you were coming over. Hello, Victoria, I replied calmly, watching her eyes dart around the room, taking in the open door behind us, calculating what we might have discovered. The children are at my mother's, she continued, moving closer. Such a shame we came all this way without getting to see them. Actually, Tommy stepped forward, his voice firm. We need to talk about the children. And about this. He pushed the storage room door open wider, revealing the shelves of hidden gifts. The color drained from Victoria's face. For a moment, her mask slipped completely, showing something close to panic before she recovered. Of that old stuff, she wagged dismissively. Just some donations I've been meaning to take to charity. You know how children outgrow things so quickly. Outgrow? I held up the still-wrapped chemistry set. They never had a chance to grow into them, Victoria. You made sure of that. These were never donations, Tommy added. These were gifts from my mother to her grandchildren. Gifts you deliberately kept from them while telling me she'd stopped sending anything. Victoria's eyes narrowed. I was protecting our children, she snapped. From what? A grandmother who loves them? Tommy's voice rose slightly. From her constant interference, Victoria shot back, always showing up unannounced, trying to undermine my parenting with her suggestions and her special little gifts. The children were getting confused about who their mother really was. I felt a deep sadness hearing her words. All these years, she'd seen my love for my grandchildren as a threat rather than a blessing. Victoria, I said softly, being a grandmother doesn't make you less of a mother. There's room in children's hearts for both. Don't patronize me, she hissed. You have no idea what it's like, having to compete with the perfect Martha Stewart grandmother. The special recipes, the handmade gifts, the teaching moments. You retired teachers think you know everything about raising children. Tommy stepped between us. This stops now, he declared. The lying, the manipulation, all of it. We're going to family counseling tomorrow, and we're going to figure out how to move forward. Victoria laughed, but it held no humor. Counseling? Because your mother can't respect boundaries. No, Tommy replied firmly. Because you've been gaslighting me for years, making me believe my mother had abandoned her grandchildren while hiding every attempt she made to stay connected to them. Just then, we'd heard the patter of small feet upstairs. Victoria's mother must have dropped the children home early. My heart leaped at the sound, even as anxiety twisted in my stomach. How would they react to seeing me here? Daddy? Lily's voice called down the stairs. Are you in the basement? Victoria moved quickly toward the stairs, but Tommy caught her arm. No more lies, he said quietly. They deserve the truth. Mommy? Daddy? Max's voice joined his sister's. Down here, sweethearts. I called before Victoria could stop me. Grandma's here too. The children thundered down the stairs, stopping short when they saw us all standing there. Lily's eyes widened. Grandma, you came to visit us? Of course I did, sweetheart, I said, fighting back tears. I've missed you both so much. Max looked confused, but Mommy said you were too busy to visit anymore, that you had important retired people things to do. Victoria flinched at her son's innocent words. Tommy knelt down to the children's level. Actually, guys, we need to tell you something. Grandma has never been too busy for you. She's been trying to see you and send you special presents all along. Presents? Lily perked up, then frowned. We haven't gotten any presents from Grandma in forever. Come here, Tommy said gently, leading them to the storage room. Look what we found. The children's gasps of wonder as they saw the shelves of gifts made my heart ache. Are these all for us? Max asked in awe. Every single one, I confirmed. I picked each one specially for you, thinking about what you love. Lily reached for a wrapped package, then looked uncertainly at her mother. Victoria stood rigid, watching her carefully constructed world unravel. It's okay, Tommy assured them. These are your gifts from Grandma. You can open them. As the children began discovering their long-hidden presents, exclaiming over each one, Victoria turned to me. You've won, she said bitterly. Are you happy now? This isn't about winning, I replied quietly. It's about healing. We're still a family, Victoria. We can find a way to make this work. She looked at her children, their faces lit with joy as they discovered the chemistry set, the train set, the art supplies. Something in her expression shifted, just slightly. The counselor's name is Dr. Anderson. Tommy told her. Appointment's at 10 tomorrow morning. We're all going, you, me, Mom. We need to find a way forward. Victoria watched as Lily carefully opened the locket I'd given her last Christmas, gasping at the photo inside. Mommy, look, it's me and Grandma baking cookies. I remember that day. For the first time, I saw tears in Victoria's eyes. I remember too, she whispered. You were so happy. We can have more days like that, I offered gently, not to replace your special moments with them, but to add to them. Children flourish with more love, not less. Victoria wiped her eyes quickly, her walls not quite ready to come down completely. But when Max ran up to show her the train set, excitedly explaining how Grandma remembered his favorite colors, she managed a small, genuine smile. Maybe, she said softly, more to herself than to us. Maybe we can try. It wasn't a perfect resolution. Those only happen in fairy tales. But as I watched my grandchildren rediscover years of love hidden away in that basement, I felt hope bloom. Sometimes the hardest walls to break down are the ones built from fear, but with patience and understanding, even those can crumble. Tommy squeezed my hand as we watched the children explore their gifts. We'll figure this out, Mom, he promised, one day at a time. Looking at Victoria's face, softening as she helped Lily fasten the locket around her neck, I believed him. The road ahead would be challenging, but at least now we were all walking it together, in the light of truth rather than in the shadows of deception. The sound of children's laughter filled the basement, pushing back the darkness of the past 6 years. It wasn't an ending yet, but it was a beginning. And sometimes that's even better. The morning of our first counseling session dawned bright and clear. I sat in Dr. Anderson's waiting room, watching Victoria fidget with her wedding ring, while Tommy flipped absently through a magazine. The tension was palpable, but underneath it ran a current of possibility. Yesterday, after the children had gone to bed, we'd stayed up late talking, really talking, for the first time in years. Victoria had revealed things about her own childhood that helped me understand her behavior. Her mother, it seemed, had been constantly undermined by an overbearing mother-in-law, eventually leading to a bitter divorce. I swore I wouldn't let that happen to my family, Victoria had admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought I was protecting us. Dr. Anderson's office was warm and inviting, with comfortable chairs arranged in a circle. She was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and an air of quiet authority that somehow made us all sit up straighter. Let's start, she said, by acknowledging that everyone here loves these children deeply. That simple statement seemed to release some of the tension in the room. Victoria's shoulders relaxed slightly, and Tommy reached for her hand. Martha, Dr. Anderson turned to me. Tell us about your relationship with your grandchildren before things changed. I described those early days, the weekend visits, the baking sessions, the stories at bedtime. I never meant to overstep, I explained. I just wanted to be part of their lives, to create memories like I had with my own grandmother. Victoria shifted in her seat. But you were there all the time, she said, though her voice held less anger than before. Every time Lily learned something new or Max accomplished something, you had to be involved. It felt like I was sharing my children with another mother. I can see how that would be threatening, Dr. Anderson nodded. Victoria, talk more about that feeling. As Victoria spoke about her fears and insecurities, I began to see our history through new eyes. What I'd seen as enthusiasm she'd experienced as intrusion. My suggestions, meant to help, had felt like criticism to a young mother finding her way. And now, Dr. Anderson asked, "How do you feel about the discovery in the basement?" Victoria's eyes filled with tears. Ashamed, she whispered, "Watching them open those gifts, seeing their joy, I realized what I'd taken from them, from all of us." Tommy spoke up then, his voice thick with emotion. "I feel guilty too. I should have questioned things more, should have seen what was happening." "The past can't be changed," Dr. Anderson said gently. "But you're all here now, willing to work on building something better. That's what matters." Over the next hour, we worked together to establish new boundaries and expectations. Victoria agreed to weekly family dinners at my house, where she would be an active participant rather than a reluctant observer. I promised to always check before dropping by their house and to discuss any significant gifts with the parents first. Small steps, Dr. Anderson reminded us. Build trust gradually. That evening we had our first family dinner in years. The children were overjoyed to be at my house again, showing Victoria all their favorite spots: the window seat where we read stories, the kitchen counter where we baked, the garden where we planted flowers. To my surprise, Victoria rolled up her sleeves and joined us in making pizza, something I'd always done with the kids. Instead of hovering anxiously, she laughed as Max covered himself in flour and suggested creative toppings for Lily's portion. "You know," she said quietly as we watched the children set the table, "my mother never cooked with me. She was always too busy, too concerned about mess." I used to envy friends who had those kinds of moments with their mothers. "It's never too late to create new memories," I replied. She looked at me then, really looked at me. "Thank you," she said. "Not just for tonight, but for not giving up on us, even when I tried to push you away." The healing process wasn't always smooth. There were still moments of tension, times when old habits threatened to resurface. But we learned to communicate, to address concerns before they festered into resentment. 3 months after that first counseling session, Victoria surprised me by asking for my help in planning Lily's 9th birthday party. "I thought we could do it together," she said. "Combine your creativity with my organizing skills." The party was a wonderful blend of both our contributions. Victoria's elegant decorations complementing my homemade cake and cracking stations. Watching her beam with pride as guests complimented their joint effort, I realized we'd finally found our balance. The children flourished under this new family dynamic. Lily started asking both of us for advice on her science projects, while Max proudly showed off artwork he created with techniques learned from both his mother and grandmother. 1 year after discovering the hidden gifts, we gathered in my garden for a Sunday lunch. The storage room gifts had all been opened, enjoyed, and integrated into the children's lives. More importantly, new gifts were being given and received with joy rather than suspicion. As I watched Victoria teach Lily how to prune roses, something I'd taught her during one of our recent gardening sessions, I felt a deep sense of peace. We weren't perfect, but we were family. And sometimes, that's the greatest gift of all. "You know," Tommy said, joining me on the patio, "I never thought we'd get here. For a while, I was afraid we'd lost everything." "Sometimes we need to lose our way to find a better path," I replied, watching Victoria and Lily laugh together as they tackled an especially thorny bush. Inside the house, Max was setting the table for lunch, carefully placing the handmade placemats Victoria and I had helped him create. Each one featured a family portrait, all of us together, no one hidden away or pushed to the margins. "Time for lunch," he called proudly, and we all gathered around the table, not as separate factions, but as one family, strengthened by the storms we'd weathered together. As Victoria helped serve the food, using one of my old recipes she recently asked to learn, I caught her eye and smiled. She smiled back, warm and genuine, no traces of the old tension remaining. We'd found our way from darkness to light, from fear to acceptance, from division to unity, and in doing so, we'd given the children the greatest gift of all. A family where love multiplies rather than divides, where differences strengthen rather than separate, and where everyone has a place at the table. The storage room stood empty now, its shelves cleared of secrets and shadows. But our hearts were full, filled with the kind of love that grows stronger for having been tested, more precious for having been nearly lost, and more beautiful for having been restored.